The first taste of rare bourbon you finally got your hands on. That's nice. At Caskers.com, we make this experience easy. Caskers is a one-stop spirit curator with an impressive selection of exclusive, sought-after, rare, and household names in the realm of premium spirits and champagne. Discover the top flavors of the year now by going to Caskers.com and using code WELCOME10 for $10 off your first purchase. Get $10 off your first purchase with code WELCOME10 at Caskers.com.
Listen up, fellas. 2020 sucked. It's almost the new year, which means new balls with our sponsor, Manscaped. They're the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, offering precision engineering tools for your family jewels and helping 2 million men all over the world get rid of the hair you know where. If you've let yourself go like a lot of us did, I know Zuckerman did in 2020 while you were in quarantine, you just weren't taking care of yourself. Well, guess what? Time for a reboot. Manscaped is ready to get you clean and shaved for 2021. Now, you know, if you listen to this show, that I love these products. I love the Lawnmower 3.0. I love the nose thing that they make that I don't know the name of. Got to learn that. These tools, they don't bite you when you put them on your skin. That's what I truly appreciate about them. You need to come out of quarantine. You need to get yourself together. You need one of these Lawnmower 3.0s. The third generation trimmer, by the way. That's why it's the 3.0. It's got a little light on it. You're not going to believe this stuff. You can see into all your crevices because of that little light. I love Manscaped. They're terrific. When you go to them and you make an order right now, you're going to get their Shed travel bag to keep all your goodies stored in comfortably. Make it a Sunday night ritual like me. Every Sunday night, I like to get out my little Manscaped bag, open it up, and make sure that I am neat and tidy. And here's what I'm going to do for you folks. Go to manscaped.com, and you can get 20% off your order and free shipping with the code SPIKE911. My name, my favorite car, manscaped.com. Go there, use my code. Trust me on this one. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping. Your balls will thank you. That's their trademark. But your wife will thank you. Your husband will thank you. Your dog will thank you. Everyone will thank you. Go to manscaped.com and use the promo code SPIKE911 and get 20% off and free shipping. Let's start the show.
And now, Hangar 56 Media presents Spike's Car Radio, a downloadable cars and coffee, hosted by writer, comedian, and automotive enthusiast Spike Ferriston. Now, here's Spike.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Here we are, Spike's Car Radio. Good show for you guys today. We're talking about the Brits today. We're going to be talking about that amazing McLaren Senna that McLaren dropped off. I got it for the weekend by myself. Thank you to the folks at McLaren. I'll let you know my thoughts on that in a minute. And then we're going to go off to merry old England and talk to Mike Bishop. I know we were last week chatting about, I think it was last week, about restoring my Series 2A. Well, Land Rover reached out right away and put me in touch with Mike. And we had a great conversation. I'm going to play that in a little bit, and I'll tell you all about it. Zuckerman, there was a lot of teachers reached out to me and thanked me for my rant, for defending them. And again, we love you, teachers. And teachers are not expendable, which was, I will admit, I could have said all of this a little differently and a little more calmly. But as I may have mentioned about my next door rant from last week, go back and listen to it if you hadn't heard it. It happened, I was banned by Nextdoor right as we were recording, so I didn't have a chance to process the anger. However, I've had a chance now, and I followed up with them. I appealed this ban, by the way, Zuckerman, and chatted with the lovely Alexis, I believe her name was, at Nextdoor National, one of those young ladies who's working wherever they do that crap app, and I was rejected. But they did say a couple of things happened, okay? I demanded to know what comments I made that crossed the line in the guidelines, okay? And I found out what they were. One with each of the idiot moms who were demanding their kids go back to school. One was this. What, you better put down the sweet vermouth, lady. That was one comment that I made that was out of line. Now,
okay, that's not so bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 2.
Not so bad. Okay, now here's what she had said to me in prior paragraphs that I was not responding to. The first thing she said to me was, "You're a moron."
That didn't get her off?
And then went on for about 7 or 8 more sentences To which I followed up with the off-used joke, "You seem nice." She was personally assaulting me. And then she went on about my wife and how does she put up with me, this really long rant.
Wait. Did she get kicked off too?
And I responded, "You should put down the sweet vermouth," okay? The other woman went on a long rant about how I was classless and then put her husband on, okay? To which I responded after their attacks, You two, you're a very dramatic couple, aren't you? Do I have to wake my wife to defend me here, or can I just go to bed, right? So that's the second comment I was banned for, okay? So I went back to Alexa and said, "Look, you got to put those comments into context, Alexis," or whatever her name was. And I said, "You got to go back and look, because I demand a retraction. You got to read the whole thing." She wrote back, "We can't, they will be dealt with." But she had no idea that this stuff was leading up to my comments. And as I've said before, I have other ways to access Nextdoor, and I have since followed up, Zuckerman, to answer your question that you were jumping the gun on. Yes, both of them were banned too. So me and the two ladies are now banned.
Why don't the three of you start your own Nextdoor so you can really insult each other? Those aren't even insults, Ferriston. This is so stupid.
I understand, not to take up Nextdoor's side, but I am a recurring criminal. And so, like, anytime I'm like on parole, I have to really obey the letter of the law. Like, if I were arrested and on parole, I couldn't hang out with people like you, criminals and felons and questionable types, without getting in trouble.
Non-association agreements.
Right, exactly. So I think that's what they were doing. But it does show the flaw in Nextdoor that these nut jobs will band together and complain. They're committing the same crime. Anyway, don't want to go down there.
I just think they really did you a favor.
Oh, I've been so happier. You're right. So much happier. So much happier.
It was shocking to see you in that condition, to see you have a meltdown. It was really
It was not
so
a meltdown.
out of character.
Well, no, it's expressing anger. I was angry.
Okay, it wasn't a meltdown.
It was there was a lot of swearing, and I'm sure Bugatti was not happy in their show to have a lot of F-bombs dropped. But, the audience gave me a pass. They said, you know what, every once in a while.
Did. I got a lot of messages, too, that I was, for once, the voice of reason. But I do like the juxtaposition.
I wouldn't go that far.
I like the juxtaposition of reviewing a $4 million car and then melting down over the sweet vermouth lady.
Well, I feel so much better.
You look so much better.
I feel so much better, and it's weird because next week our show will fall on Festivus. You and I and Johnny Lieberman are going to get together and air our grievances, and I peaked a week or two too soon.
Something will come up. Don't worry.
Are you sure?
Of course,
Look
something
at me.
will come up.
I'm a picture of health and relaxation right now.
You resigned from the debating society. That's a good thing for you.
Oh no, I didn't.
Oh, no, you're still in.
Didn't. I really do enjoy it. And on January 8th, when I'm allowed to return, watch out.
Oh, you've only been banned you're not permanently off?
No, this is a 1-month suspension.
That's it?
Well, prior was 2 weeks. And then
what comes next?
Well, I would hope they ban me for life.
I hope they do.
They should. Because I'm...
But you're never going to make it for the rest of your life if sweet vermouth is going to get you a 1-month ban.
Look. Yeah, I know. It's always the same. It's funny. Everybody tries to conduct themselves on that, and then they all get booted off, and they come back. It's fun. It's something, like I said, something to do when I'm smoking cigars and done looking at cars. I just want to say that if you're in Malibu, we talked about this. Our old friend Bill, the Malibu Kitchen. Remember Thanksgiving?
Don't call him Stanley.
No. He has a holiday menu out for you guys. He asked us just to mention that. We did this for Thanksgiving. The pies were incredible. I hesitate to do it again, Zuckerman, because I sat and ate 4 pies all afternoon, and then for the next 4 days,
I got a free pie out of it.
His pies are so delicious. But this menu is the holiday menu. There's turkey, the little crab cakes, chilled jumbo shrimp. It's awesome. Help Bill out. Bill is the guy who helps us with the Malibu Kitchen Cars and Coffee, always saves a spot for me and Zuckerman and Leno and Matt Farah and whoever else we want to show up, the Porsche people. Go to the Malibu Kitchen. You can find him on Instagram or call him at 310-456-7845, 310-456-7845, and order, trust me on this, you're not going anywhere, order your holiday meal from Bill. It's awesome. And yes, call him Stanley. Go ahead.
And read the Yelp reviews. They're fun.
Yeah, they are good. I had such a big show planned, Zuckerman. I feel a little like Rachel Maddow right now. I want to get to this McLaren Senna, but...
You look like Rachel Maddow.
I've always looked like Rachel Maddow. That's an old joke. Since 2006 and I went on TV, I've heard the joke, and I don't mind it. I like Rachel Maddow. Anyway, I feel like her only in the sense that she has a show planned, and then news comes in, and then you have to change the show. And something like that happened this morning via Seinfeld, through Steve Sirio and Aston Martin New England, and you and I were sent this article. And I when I read it, I immediately wanted to talk about it in the show. I had no idea where it came from. So I just got off the phone with Sirio, who said this was a story in a German newspaper. I don't know the name of it. I don't know that. Well, why don't I just say it just so that our asses are covered here, liability-wise. Die Seat Dre. Die Sheet Dre. What does that mean?
It's okay. It sounds like something that we get you banned from next door. Yes.
You see it right there? Let me see if I can get a byline, because that's also important. Von Oliver Schmitz und Stefan Mohn wrote this. And I thought I would just read some of it to you. Zuckerman, you've read it. But read to you, the listeners, because it's a pretty fascinating little story. It's called The Lucrative Business with the Racing Legends. Aachen could have been the hub in fraud involving millions of counterfeit Porsche classic cars. Porsche brings charges, or prosecutor brings charges. I'm sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on. I'm just going to read this, right? It's pretty fascinating stuff. Around this world, they have become legends made of sheet metal. For example, because they victoriously crossed the finish line at the 24-hour of Le Mans. The fact that film icon James Dean raced to his death with a copy contributed to the formation of legends on the streets. Now, this is a loose translation, right?
Yes.
The wording is very awkward. In case there is talk of the Porsche 917, the multiple Le Mans winner, which is sometimes referred to as the racing car of the century. In the other case of a Porsche 550 Spider that was only built around 100 times, it cost 24,000 Deutschmarks in the 1950s. Okay, so what they're doing is they're setting up the world, and with a bad translation, by the way, of these cars that we all just dream about. 550s, 917s, and the rest. Then it goes into an indictment. And again, I apologize because this is a translation from German, and I want to get to the cars and the people. The accused, it just jumps right to the accused, is a 49-year-old former managing director of a company specializing in vintage cars in Aachen, a 48-year-old cosmetic surgeon from Dusseldorf.
Oh, he's a schnorrer doctor.
And a 72-year-old former successful racing driver and proven Porsche racing expert from Sachsenheim. Do you have any idea who that might be? I do.
I do, too. What's interesting,
Hold on one second. Let me just set it up, because the listeners don't know what we know, Zuckerman. The indictment encompasses a total of 22 cases, 22 cars
22.
In the most varied forms, whereby the 49-year-old is believed to have been involved in all of these cases and therefore the main defendant. Even after the raid, he was almost 4 months in custody and was only released on payment of a very large bail. A total of 14 other automotive legends. Four wheels play a role. So what it's saying, 14 other cars, in addition to a 550, a 917, a racing version of a 911, models 904 and 908 have been fabricated, caught up in this giant scandal. This is going to be a very big scandal.
Tens and tens of millions of dollars of fake cars.
Right. It doesn't name this Porsche expert by name, but I've heard a couple of guesses. What is your opinion?
Well, first, I'll say that in Germany, they have different libel laws than we do. So in the U.S., the article would name who the alleged criminals are. In Germany, they don't. But it is very well known who they're referring to.
And the rumor has it that it is?
Well, the race car legend would be Jürgen Barth.
Correct. That's what I've heard.
Yes. And forgive, and by the way, all of your German pronunciations, Mr. Porsche, were horrible.
Can we, thank you. Can we stay on this subject, please? We're in the middle of a big story. You just said Jurgen Barth is being accused of counterfeiting. That's a pretty big story.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, we've heard, stories about people assembling cars and putting these cars together. It's just now we're breaking the news on a podcast. Right? Because I have not read this reported anywhere. Sirio got it from Europe, and it was translated and sent around.
And it's interesting because...
Do we know what cars, specifically?
Okay, I believe I know that this 911R, there was a 911R that was phony a few years ago that got sold to a guy in the United States, and money had to be refunded to the tune of several millions of dollars. There are a couple of fake 917s out in the world. If you recall, there was a 917 pulled from the Gooding auction.
I do know that
not
car.
long ago. And then
now, let me just stop you there. That was a car that when we were looking at it, there was a guy, someone we know at 11parts.com, right, attributed to him, where he said... I know that car. I remember when they built it in 1985.
Yes.
And I couldn't tell if that was a joke or not, and that was all kind of secondhand coming down from another friend. But that car then ended up being sold. They did the old disappearing act, I think, where that car disappeared for 2 years.
And it comes back.
It comes back with new paperwork, and it's sold for $15 million.
Yes.
But that's the car that's caught up in this mess.
Right. And so
let's be clear. This is a counterfeiting cars ring of very expensive multi-million-dollar cars that people up until today believed were real.
And imagine this. A real 917 was valued as much as $20 million within the past couple of years. So if you can make one out of parts for under $1 million, that's incredibly profitable. A 911R is worth a few million. A 550 could be worth $4 to $5 million. And I believe you could get a Beck replica 550 for about $30,000.
So the question then becomes, do the customers know? I mean, I don't know what, obviously this is similar to what Seinfeld was caught up in with European collectibles and that green four-cam Speedster. Right. The laws are pretty clear about stamping VIN numbers on cars. And let me be clear, Jerry did not do that, but he possibly bought a car that was faked. But we don't know that yet. In Germany... can you sell? It's when I'm reading this article, and again, I'm not going to read any more of it because the English is really broken. But it appears that if the customer is aware and knows what they're buying, then it isn't a fraud. Is that your belief?
Well, it's like anything else. If we all know what we're buying and selling, it's not a fraud. Right. I don't think that you can. If you know that you're buying a fake,
yes.
If you know you're buying a replica, if you know you're buying a forgery, then you can't complain about it later. But if you are then that would be the same here.
Right.
And so...
Can you imagine if, and again, everything I'm saying about that Porsche 917, this is kind of hearsay and rumor that I've heard, but the fella who paid $15 million for that car has got to be a little pissed off this morning, right? Or not, right?
Well, you would think. But here's a funny thing. So if you get a 917 for $15 million, which is $5 million under market.
Right.
Caveat emptor, baby. A man doesn't get conned unless he has larceny in his heart.
What do you think that car is really worth?
If it's a total phony, less than $1 million. It's like anything.
You think so? But I mean, it's got the frame, it's got real parts, it's
that's
thrown
what
together.
I'm saying about $1 million. It's like
I don't know.
GTO Engineering makes those replica Ferrari GTOs and short wheelbases, and what the cost of a short wheelbase Ferrari is about $750,000 when they make it versus something that.
But he would own a real VIN number, right, on this 917, even though it was restamped on a frame. It would still be. It's a little different.
Maybe you can say that, but it still isn't what it's purported to be.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't think it would be that low. I'd put it more in the $5 or $6 mil category because where else are you going to get something like that?
Well, I see
the sum total of the value of the parts. You hear what I'm saying?
I'm thinking the sum total of the value of the parts is $1 million, but I could be wrong. It could be more.
Well, maybe his car won't get caught up in it, but that is a story you're gonna hear first on Spike's Car Radio, and we want to know a lot more about the cars involved. So if you have any info, send me whatever you have. We want to know. That's gonna be a pretty big goddamn story, and it's funny, Zuckerman. These frauds, no matter what they are in the watch world or the car world
or the art world,
it's always the same. There's suddenly a big explosion of frauds and counterfeits. Everybody freaks out about their stuff, and then it's quiet for like 5 years, and then as if everything was fixed, and suddenly all the counterfeit people, and you can trust me, the dealers say, and then it happens again and again and again and again.
Nothing's ever new. And by the way, there are a couple of reputable car dealers that are caught up in this. Or formerly reputable car dealers.
You're not going to say them right now.
I'm not going to say them.
We'll figure that out later on when it hits. Well, if you bought a 917 and perhaps it's not real, you're going to need our next sponsor, BetterHelp. Perhaps there's something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online. Who doesn't need this? You're at home right now, you got a problem, you go to BetterHelp. They have a broad range of expertise available, which may not be locally available in many areas. The service is available for clients worldwide. All you have to do is log into your account anytime, send a message to your counselor. You get a timely and thoughtful response. Plus, you can schedule a weekly video or phone session so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room as with traditional therapy. With those old magazines that people are touching, and then you get coronavirus from Sports Illustrated. Forget it! BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed, and it's more affordable than traditional offline counseling. They also have financial aid. How about that? So go to BetterHelp and check them out. All you have to do is go to www.betterhelp.com, BetterHelp.com. Use my promo code Spike911. That's betterhelp.com and join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. I could have used this last week, Zuckerman. We should have just called BetterHelp. By the way, you get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com with this promo code Spike911. I could have used it last week. But as you see, I've kind of righted the ship on my own. I'm much better. And that's because I'm not on Nextdoor. But again, I will always defend our teachers, and God bless them that they have to deal with these idiot parents. Let's talk about, we're going to have the Land Rover Classics guys on in 1 minute, which was really fun to talk about, especially in light of the fact that last night, Zuckerman, my wife said, I want to make sugar cookies with the kids. James wanted to make some sugar cookies, so she sent me out, and I looked at all my keys, and I went, I'm going to take that old Land Rover out to the Ralph's, and I'm going to go get me some sugar cookies and maybe a little COVID-19 if I'm not careful. And I started up the truck, and I'm like looking down the road. I'm like, why is it so hard to see? I had the left headlight out, low beam left headlight. Oh. Okay, so I high beamed it, and it was working, right? So then I decided, well, this is such an old truck. I bet I can drive with a high beam on and not have to worry about people flashing me and upsetting me. And I was right. I could drive that thing with a high beam on. I believe it's 60 watt versus 55, and no one even cares, right? So problem solved, right? Well, I get home at 8:30 and go, am I going to watch some Netflix and relax like a normal human being after a day of work? And I'm obsessing about the low beam. And you remember last night how windy and cold it was?
Yes,
it was like
very.
Windy and cold. And I go, fuck, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Excuse me for that F-bomb. I say, hell, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Heck there, Hank. And this is what is, this is the, I have trouble describing my automotive thing because I'm not a journalist, I'm an enthusiast. But there's another element to it that I'll let you chime in on in a minute, which is obsession. And I think like a lot of listeners that when something's broken, you can't stop thinking about it, just like the sunglasses. So at 8:30 in my pajamas, Zuckerman, I threw on the old, I look pretty crazy. I turn on the garage lights. I pulled up the Land Rover to the garage. It's windy as hell. I'm cold. I'm wearing slippers. I'm wearing gym sweats and an old puffy jacket. And I decide, because, forget about just Googling Series 2A headlight. Just a million things come up. I decide to take this goddamn thing apart, which I do. I take off the outer ring. I take out the headlight. And lo and behold, it is not a sealed beam headlight. Do you know what that means?
It's a jumble of parts?
It's a jumble of parts, but in the back, you flip it over after you unplug it, which is my first question. How does this goddamn thing plug into the truck? It's a 3-prong plug, which that's good news. But it's got a bulb in it and a little clip. And I take out the clip and I take out the bulb, and there's my H4. I think it was a Lucas H4. Blah, 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 with a lot of numbers that are impossible to Google, that only a stupid guy in England has. It's going to take me 2 months to get it, right? But I got it. There it is, right? So that took me about 30 minutes. I was so happy. I left the eyeball out and put it in the garage and put the truck back in the driveway. And I'm holding this like little Christmas bulb going, I got to find this. The rest of the night was buying 3 or 4 of them from different places. I managed to get one that's going to come in 48 hours, okay? But I can't go to sleep now. So I email Randy Stuttgart, I call him, at Stuttgart Automotive. I love Randy. He's always ready with a dumb question. I go, do you have one of these things? He goes, come by the place tomorrow morning. And I went by there this morning. I was supposed to get COVID tested, but I went there first to get the bulb, and then I went to the COVID test. And he goes, he goes, we have this in stock. I know exactly what you're talking about. Non-sealed beam. It's an H4. He hands me the thing right before I came here. That's why I was a little late, sucker, when I was working on the truck. I put it in, and it fucking worked. And I feel so happy.
Does the lamp point in the right direction?
It does. And you know what I noticed? There are 2 exterior little square frames. They were both installed incorrectly, so you couldn't make those adjustments, and I put them back to where they were supposed to be. It has to be up there with the birth of my first child, the amount of satisfaction I feel of doing that repair myself. And Randy just gave me the bulb. He goes, here, take it. I'm trying to get one from God knows where in Europe, and it's like $60 or $70. He goes, it's a couple bucks. Here, take it. Thank you, Randy. And that's why I love this thing. I love this car thing. It's obsession. It's being driven to learn and to fix. I still don't know shit about cars as far as taking them apart. But boy, do I love that old Land Rover in a way that yesterday I did not. And
it's a form of neuritis.
Of what?
Neuritis.
Neuritis?
Some type of ferritin
You're
feces
pretty good about letting
neuritis.
shit go. You break stuff, you throw it in the hangar, and you just tell someone to do it. I feel incomplete unless the thing is done or I have a solution on the way.
I feel incomplete as well, but there's only so many problems I can hold in my head.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about McLaren Senna. Not long ago, I saw Hoontastic is his name, the fella from Automobile Magazine, out at Bill's in a McLaren Senna. And I really should thank his name here. Thank him by name because he's responsible for this. Hoontastic. Let's see. Who is that? And forgive me.
Forgive me.
Hoontastic. Like, there's 2. Connor Golden. Connor. Sorry, Connor. I'm horrible with names. But Connor had a McLaren Senna, and it was the Automobile Magazine McLaren Senna that they had spec'd out. And he said, you should request this. You should get this. And I said, if only I could. Well, I did. 6 months later, after it was run up to the top of the food chain, they said, we're going to drop a McLaren Senna in your driveway on a Friday and pick it up on a Monday. And they said, what are you going to do with it? I said, well, I'm going to drive it. I'm going to take some pictures, bring it to Cars and Coffee. But I want to tell my audience what it's like. You know, the car's been out since 2017. What is this like to drive it and to own it and to be in it, right? And they said, that's cool. Most of us, and I'll put myself in that category. I'm not going to buy, I don't have the money to buy a McLaren Senna, right? That's a lot of dough. It's a couple $1 million.
If you could have gotten one, it was $1 million, right?
Yeah. And now they go up. See, every once in a while you see 1.4, 1.5, but, they're an incredible car. And anyway, that's not how I approach cars. Anyway, I approach them by like, how do I use it for 4 days, and what was it like, and how did people react, et cetera, et cetera. Let me just talk about it. It's a limited production car. They were limited to 500. They joined the F1 and the P1 in the McLaren Ultimate Series class of car. It's the third car in that series, but not necessarily the successor. These are just great things that they build that aren't necessarily, one-upping each other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All hand-built, of course, at McLaren Production Center in Surrey, England. 500 units were built. All were sold immediately. They were listed at £750,000, and they sell for generally $2 million, somewhere between 1.6 and 2.4. You can find them a little all over the place. 789 horsepower V8 turbonium. 2019 is the first year for the Senna. Let me see what else is here. 3.8 liter bi-turbo V8 plus electric motor. Oh, that's the P1. 4 liter bi-turbo V8. It's a monster car. Let me see if there are any other stats I want to run through here. And then I want to talk about, 0 to 60, 2.8 seconds. Okay, blindingly fast. But what is it like? What is it like? All right? Let me tell you, the second that was dropped in my driveway, like the Bugatti Veyron, the boys left their class and ran out. My boys, right? And I found consistently, wherever I took this thing, the boys in all of us, the boys and the girls, the boys and the kids and the teenagers, the 20s, all came out of the woodwork to look at this car and marvel at it, right? And when you look at it, it's very provocative exterior design-wise, because people say, I love the way it looks, I hate the way it looks, right? I happen to love things like this that are very polarizing and provokes two strong responses, both positive and negative. That's a very disruptive kind of equation for anything, even entertainment. But when you learn that it looks that way because it is aerodynamic, then you immediately accept the exterior design of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, functional.
And let me tell you, of course everybody's like, well, compare the Veyron to the Senna. You would never do that. These are two very different cars. The Bugatti is a touring car. The Senna is a track-focused performance car. Let me just title this review, if that's what you call it. This is a race car with a license plate in the most extreme feeling. Very stiff ride, minimal storage, stratospheric pricing, but aerodynamics that are unparalleled, like nothing I've ever driven before. Okay? So that, Zuckerman, like when you get in a street legal race car, it reminds me, at least in feel, as far as something that should be on a track versus the street, as Jerry's 74 RSR.
Right.
Did you ever go in that car?
Yep.
It's just that is just a bloody race car that you happen to be able to drive on the street. Okay. So, when you get into this thing, and you first sit down and you belt yourself in, you notice one thing right away. It's got normal street belts, right? But behind the seat, the sports seats, they have the racing belts that they say very clearly, do not use these unless you're on the track. But how cool is that, first of all, right? You lower the door, and you notice it doesn't have a mechanical latch. It's got a hydraulic, electronic button to open it up.
Something I don't like.
Right. And it reminded me immediately of the Porsche 917, where the second you get in, you go, okay, if I get in an accident, how do I get out, right? McLaren has thought about it. Behind the seat, there are two little mechanical releases. So in case there is an issue, electric or fire-wise,
it's an ejector seat.
Yeah, you reach back like this, you pull it, it's going to open up. So you immediately feel better. But the visibility inside was great. Behind you, not so good. But as far as, I felt like I was in some sort of military spec
F-16, F-22, some Raptor.
Not as tight as that. It feels really roomy inside, but it feels military and engineered for racing, which I love.
Serious purpose machine.
Yeah, okay. And I will admit, this is a car you're not going to want to get into a lot for errands. You're not getting the cat litter. And I alluded to that. What is it like going to Ralph's to get cat litter? You're not going to do it, all right? It's too much of a production to do that. But when you want to drive on a Saturday or you want to hit the canyons, which are things that I did, this was such a thrill ride and such a treat, and it was so fun to be in something that doesn't belong on LA streets. We brought it to the Malibu Kitchen. Jay brought his P1 to park next to it because he knew I had the Senna. And, people go nuts for these cars. We've had a few Sennas at the Cars and Coffee. People go bonkers. They go bonkers for the Senna. And I think the Senna is getting I don't understand the bad rap it's getting. I think that's an uninformed take on what is.
Why does it have a bad rap?
I think it has a bad rap because people don't like the way it looks, and I think it's an uninformed take. It's expensive, but I haven't driven anything, like the Bugatti Veyron. I've not driven anything like that. I've never driven anything like the Senna either, and to me, that's the value of these cars.
Form following function is the highest expression of engineering and design.
Now, I could compare these two, the P1 and the McLaren Senna, to each other. I need a tissue, Zuckerman. I'm leaking COVID.
Let me get that
out.
for you.
Would you get that for me? You're very kind, sir. This is how I would compare the two. You can't compare them. But let me go over some numbers. McLaren P1 at launch, $1.35 million. McLaren Senna, $1 million. McLaren P1, 3.8 bi-turbo V8. Thank you, sir. But with electric motor, 4-liter bi-turbo V8 for the McLaren Senna. Both have 7-speed. Both McLaren has 900 horsepower. McLaren Senna, 800 horsepower. McLaren P1's got it beat on torque by about 64 foot-pounds. 0 to 60 is the same. 0 to... Oh, my printer got all fucked up here. Okay. Speed stats are about the same. Here's all you would need to know if you are lucky enough to be thinking about a P1 or a Senna. This is all you'd need to know. Or an F1. Which is a totally different thing. There would be the vintage version of these cars. The P1 is your road car. Like on a straight line, the P1 is definitely going to beat the Senna. But on a racetrack, the aerodynamic advantage would take over, and the Senna would not destroy, it would be faster than the P1, all right? That's how you would think about these two cars. And maybe you guys already know this, but I'm just figuring this out. I was wondering how you would use or pick either one of these cars, and there you have it, right? That's it.
If you had to pick between a P1 and a Senna, what would you take?
Good question. Senna. I would take the Senna just because it's, there are days where I want to get into something truly insane. So after my next door rant last week, to blow off the anger, I'd want a big, angry racing machine, and I'd want to get it out on the street.
Ease of driving, Ferrison.
P1, F1, a lot easier. Bugatti Veyron, much easier. As far as tootling, you mean?
Right.
Yes.
But if you started going fast, if you wanted to drive it, can the average decent driver, say like me and you, really get something out of this car?
A Senna?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're stuck to the road. You can feel God's hand pushing down on the car as you get up to speed. But we would get, like any of these things, you'd get into trouble because what they do is they go fast, and they go faster than you're supposed to go on city streets, right? And you are getting a lot of attention, and everybody's looking at you, and you also have to go, all right, I'm buying exclusivity if that's one of the things you want. And if you do like the attention at a Cars and Coffee or out in the world, a car like the Senna is definitely that car. And, I didn't meet, and maybe folks are just polite, but I didn't meet a single person who went, oh, God, I hate those things. It was quite the opposite. One, how did an idiot like you get this from McLaren? Matt Farah was a little jealous.
Excellent.
But, like I said, my kids right on up, what a cool machine. Like the dyed in the wool car people just flipped out. And so there it is. That's what it's like. Again, top lining it, canyons, fun, and racing. You got something you can drive to the track and have an amazing time. I'm not sure I would use it for errands or my much maligned Ralph's run with groceries that Johnny Lieberman likes to make fun of me for. But an extreme machine for sure that delivers really special drives and and definitely worth the reputation and the money.
Nice.
How about
Very
that?
nice review, Ferris.
Thank you.
Maybe your best review ever.
Well, I'm trying to get that new car that Connor had. Did you see? He had something called the 620R from McLaren at the Cars and Coffee this weekend.
I did not see that.
By the way, the police stopped coming. They gave up. I heard that they were just like, we have no legal recourse here, and
they did it once. They did their duty, and then they split.
Well, yeah, the word was that they're not going to keep showing up and harassing people when they don't have a right to do that, when people are customers getting coffee and people are hopefully obeying the rules. So there you go. And it was a good one. We had a good one. And I think this Sunday I'm going to have, you're not going to like it, Ducati just dropped off a little racing bike. a little white racing bike with red wheels. V2 Panigale, dude. Yeah, it's rad.
Listen, I've said my bit about it. I've said what I can say. You're a big boy. You're an adult.
You know,
do as you will.
I drove the R9T out on Sunday, and again, I seem to be fucking these bikes up by mistake. I love the BMW R9T, but I keep having problems. As you recall, I put the cover on the R18 and had to scrape the pipes and get it off, and it was perfectly clean. I got out there, and I pulled up, and Jay's there, and we're talking. I'm like, what is that smell? And I look under, and I guess I hit a garbage bag. And you
melted it.
But this one was impossible to clean.
Seagull.
I just called BMW. I just went, you got to, yeah, come take that one back. Yeah, no, I'm done with it. It's great. And it was heartbreaking because it's my favorite bike that I've driven. You know, it's
wrecked it.
Killer exterior design. Doesn't have a killer instinct though, but it's one of the most likable motorcycles, if not the most likable motorcycle I've ever. I mean, again, I'm late. The R9T, total winner. Before we bring out Mike Bishop and Land Rover Classic, let's talk about Hodinkee.
Our friends.
You know, I'm hearing a lot about it, too. A lot of people are thanking me for putting them in touch with Hodinkee. Stop taking my picture, please.
Oh, stop crying.
Why do you do that?
Don't be a woman.
I'm not one of those celebrities that likes their picture taken. I have low self-esteem. Do you know how many good pictures of you I have that I have not posted yet?
Okay.
Do you know what picture I'm talking about?
Oh, I know all the pictures. They were all terrible.
If I were you, I would let me post that picture because it's so funny.
Threatening.
It's not threat. It's funny.
Is it the one with the shit up my nose, or is it the one with the condom on the stick?
That's a good one. The one with your stuff up your nose makes the kids laugh. You're like a jolly old funny man. No, it's the one with the condom that you found when the Zagato broke down.
Fitting.
One day after delivery.
Fitting that it would break down right where the used rubbers were.
Anyway, Hodinkee, let's start the ad. I'm resetting it, but you don't have to edit out all that other stuff, Will. Just let it go, for heaven's sakes. They are the preeminent source for all things watches. They've recently announced a new venture, Hodinkee Insurance. Again, like I'm telling you, people are thanking me because you can take the Hodinkee app. You can take a picture of your watch. Your watch is insured. That means when you're going away for the holidays, if you're lucky enough to be able to do that, boom, you're insured. They've created this in partnership with Chubb, the world's premier insurer of valuable collectibles. Hodinkee Insurance is a game changer in how you protect the watches you love. It was designed by watch enthusiasts for watch enthusiasts, and I've used it, and I can tell you that is exactly right. It makes the process of insuring your watches as simple as possible by eliminating the typical pain points that can make insurance such a headache. For instance, you don't have to go out and get your damn watch appraised, I think, unless it's worth over $100,000. Just take a picture. They know watches. They can look at the picture and go, okay, we know what those are worth. Signing up takes just a few minutes, and in most cases, you can instantly protect your watches with comprehensive insurance backed by two of the most trusted names in their industries. And here they say, right, you're not going to need independent appraisal, sales receipts. It's all done automatically. Depending on the value of watch, a few additional questions on protection may be asked. You can also switch your insurance to other watches. And when you sell a watch, it's fantastic. Your watch is going to be valued at up to 150% of the value, which means if you collect watches, when your watch goes up after a year or two and then gets stolen, you're covered. Do you get it? Hodinkee Insurance is available to U.S. residents in all 50 states, even Kentucky. They didn't write that. I just added that. Visit hodinky.com/insurance or download the Hodinky app. That's what I do because I like to look at watches when I'm not on Nextdoor and all this cool stuff that Ben Clymer and Enery and the whole gang over there have. Boy, go to get that Hodinky app. Those guys really turned that into a big money deal, haven't they? How did they do that?
Absolutely.
Right? They're
Persistence,
now,
smarts, persistence.
you know what they did?
Persistence,
Do you know what they
execution.
did, though, in short? What they did, Zuckerman? They started writing about watches, and then very quickly they became dealers of watches, and now they deal all the biggest brands, and they just stole, they must have stole Tourneau and all these other companies' business. They ate their lunch. And you know what? They don't rip people off like Tourneau used to rip people off, in my opinion. You'd go in there, and they'd have the list price, but you can get it. They don't do that crap. Now I'm getting all mad again. Anyway, yesterday, Land Rover reached out. I was talking to them about getting my Explorer pack for the new Defender. The truck has been delivered without it, and now I don't know if I'm going to get it. I'm insisting that they find me an Explorer pack, and Land Rover said they're going to hook me up. And then we talked about my Series 2A truck that I was just talking about. And they said, why don't you talk to this guy, Mike Bishop? He works at Land Rover Classic. And, he can guide you or help you make decisions. And I said, let's just talk to him on the show. I mean, I just don't know anything about what they do there or what they offer. And I bet the listeners will be really into it. And, a lot of them are as crazy as I am about these old trucks. So I got Mike on. Sweet guy. He's in his house on I think Sunday night at 7:00 because of the time difference, and we just went through what Land Rover Classic does and the history of Series 2As from the very beginning and Series trucks and the royal family and how they became popular, and it's a fun conversation. It's just fun to be talking to somebody at a factory of one of my favorite brands, the Land Rover people. So here's Mike Bishop from Land Rover Classic. There he is. Hi, Michael. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Spike.
Where are we chatting from?
We're chatting from just near Worcester. I live just near Worcestershire, just near Worcester, in the UK. About 40 miles away from Jaguar Land Rover Classic.
That makes for a nice commute. Are you driving to work every day?
Yeah, drive to work every day, and it's great in the British summer when you can drive some of the older vehicles because there's some great lanes and byways and beautiful green lush rural setting, which is spectacular to drive through, and a pleasure.
Now, you just said you can drive some of the older vehicles. Does that mean there is a collection of old Land Rovers that you have the keys to the kingdom?
Yeah, effectively, I have the keys to the kingdom in the sense that I suppose a lot of us do there. And there's obviously a lot of vehicles coming through all the time, be it customer vehicles that we're doing restorations on, vehicles we have in our own collection. There's a Jaguar Land Rover collection at work, and
what's there? That's what I'm getting at. What are those cars in the Land Rover collection that they let you drive back and forth to work in?
Well, there's about base sort of 40 in the collection.
What are your favorites?
Well, my favourite's one that I took to the States earlier in the year to the 4x4 Festival, which was Land Rover number 7, 1948 model, pre-production prototype. And that was a vehicle I was involved with the restoration. I was the restoration engineer on that, the build engineer. And I love that little car just because, she came in as a wreck. We found it just outside of the Solihull factory in 2016, about a week after the original Defender stopped production, completely out of the blue. It was in this guy's backyard. And just as you do, barn find, perfect. And all mostly original.
Wow.
And we got her in, and she needed a lot because she'd sat a long time in this guy's backyard, and she had the hood off and the engine was in the rain, and it was a bit of a mess, but we got her apart and gave her a full restoration. The engine was very difficult because it was full of water, but it had to be done. It was the second oldest Land Rover engine in the world, so we had to do it. So,
right.
Yeah.
So when you approach a restoration like that, and again, forgive me because I know mostly the car restoration world, not the Land Rover restoration world, but it sounds like you're preserving as much of the original metal everywhere that you can, unless it's hopeless. Correct?
That's what we try to do. I mean, I strongly think that, a restoration, most of the time you've got to look at it is it viable? Is the car a restorable condition? Or equally, if it's a car which doesn't deserve to be restored, say it's a low mileage truck, or it's something which is beautifully preserved, and you sort of think, okay, we could probably recommission this vehicle rather than fully restore it and remove its character. At the end of the day, you've got to judge each vehicle on its merits,
right?
And because the cycle of use per owner is completely different over a vehicle's 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
But this number 7 car, you said it was the number 7.
Yeah.
That's something that is significant to you. So with that, I'm curious. So how much of the original truck was okay? Like, I'm assuming the chassis was just rusted out and broken. I mean, go ahead. Tell me.
I'll fill you in the whole thing. So very, very lucky in that the first 48 prototype cars, they had a galvanized chassis. So this was one of the galvanized chassis cars. If it hadn't had a galvanized chassis, yes, it would have been in an extremely bad way. The chassis would have been almost unrestorable. So that helped preserve it. The main firewall was in really bad condition. To restore that, we probably replaced about 70% of the metal in it. But we wanted to keep sort of the character of the vehicle for 2 reasons. It was a very striking car from a patinated point of view. It had been painted dark. It was originally light green, but it had been painted dark green at one point and then blue at another point. It had all this incredible patchwork of colours through it, which looked amazing.
Yeah.
And from a second point of view, if you go, this vehicle was one of the first 8 produced before the Amsterdam Motor Show launch in 1948. And of the other vehicles that exist, so Huey's number 1, and there's a guy who owns number 3, and number 4's in the Bewley Motor Museum. Number 5, the others are gone, and there's number 7. So those other 3 vehicles, they've been completely repainted, whereas number 7 still had that original light green paint that was seen before the launch of the car.
Wow.
People who are looking at it then, you'd be the same person who's looking at it now. So we thought to preserve that paint, preserve what you're looking at and what the light is reflecting in your eyes was incredibly important.
Yeah. But you weren't able to save that original paint, or you were?
Yeah, we saved it. We saved it. Yeah, we saved it.
But how do you do that with 6 layers of other paint on top of it?
Well, a lot of paints, paint in those days wasn't quite the quality that it is now, and you often see it if someone's got an older car or truck and they've painted it. They often do it with house paints or poorer paints or just rattle cans or whatever. And as that paint degrades, it starts to flake off and fall off. And so if you hot wash them and clean them and do other processes, usually if the original paint's preserved underneath, that's usually got got a really good adhesion to the original metal of the car, and hopefully it will survive. And in the case of number 7, we were very lucky that the panel work that was original survived with that light green paint.
It must make you guys laugh. One, that there's a Land Rover Classic department because you made a lot of these things. There are millions of series trucks on the planet Earth. Am I right about those numbers? There's lots since the beginning.
There's a very high survival rate of them. And,
but I just mean numbers made.
They made.
Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. By 1976, they'd made 1 million Land Rovers.
Right.
Yeah.
So these things are everywhere. I remember seeing them when I would go down to the beach in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I like to fish, and I like to catch bluefish, and the bluefish and the striped bass, they boil maybe 50 yards off the beach, and you'd see these guys chasing the bluefish boils in old Land Rovers. And that's where I first started seeing these Series 2As and these Series trucks and going, I want to get something that drives on the beach like that. But they were never thought of as collectible. It was a utility truck. It was an alternative to a Jeep. Now, flash forward to I'm here in LA, and a Series 2A comes under my nose on eBay, and I buy it, and we get it running and make it safe. For me, it was always this beautiful collectible thing. But to the outside world at the time, my friends were laughing at me, going, "What? That's not something anybody is going to care about in the future." Now, here we are today in 2020, as prices are creeping up. They're not, like 9/11 prices, but these things, even here in LA now, you see guys buying these old trucks, and we're all in love with them. And for me, my $16,000 truck is just as valuable as, a Porsche Speedster I might own that's worth a hell of a lot more money. Does it surprise you that the collector world has suddenly focused in on these trucks?
I think, going back to, I suppose, the first part of your story, what I call your Land Rover story, that love of seeing those trucks racing up and down the beach and thinking, wow, I really want to do. I really want one of them. That's your Land Rover story, and many people have a Land Rover story. My Land Rover story is very similar. I was 14. My uncle had a 2,500 acre farm in a very green part of rural Australia, and I didn't have anything to run around on the farm. But there was a guy at school whose dad had a Series 2A 109, and I was like, that's really cool. And he got to drive around when he was about 14, 15. Everyone else thought I was completely barking mad. What do you want that old thing for? I mean, this was the late 1980s, though. Early 90s. It was just a 40-year-old thing. It wasn't anything special at that point in time. So I went and, looked at the local paper. It was a local trading post, and I bought this old Land Rover, this 49 model, for $700 at the time. And, got it home, and Dad was very good to let me get it, and I put it in the garage and I pulled it apart. And luck had it, that I met the right people at the right time to help me get that vehicle on the road, and I learned a lot. Yeah. Okay, but now fast forward to the second part of your question. How is that those two, that love of the vehicle, sort of dispersed itself and grown to sort of be at the world you're saying. Land Rovers are sort of competing price-wise with Porsches and all kinds of exotic
cars. No, you're seeing these numbers up approaching 100,000 now, for a fully restored, beautiful truck.
It's all down to that story, that cool Land Rover story. What did you see? Oh, there was the people who had it on, they could do this with it, they could do that with it. And the vehicle today, those attributes of, it's practical enough to do anything. So if you have a restored Land Rover, it doesn't matter if it's a fully restored, beautiful, like one of our reborns, or it's, a patinaed vehicle like we got number 7, or it's sounds like your 2A, you've got it running on the road as it is. And that doesn't, to one effect, that, the vehicle is for you to do still what you like with it. And if you want to take it to a show and show it off, that's great. If you want to go on expedition in it, that's great. If you want to use it on the farm, that's great. If you want to do this with it, it's great. And I think that those stories, as people looked around and saw what's really cool, and it's really captured them. Like, oh, wow, you can do on the beach, you can do this.
You can do anything in it. And, yesterday I was ferrying my son around to his hike. That's all these kids can do it during the pandemic is go on hikes. So I was driving up the street to this trail and remembering we were in the old truck and we had the dog and people are just waving at us. And I was just remembering how popular these things are and how they make people smile when they see them. Let me ask you a couple bits of Land Rover history that I may not have right in my head, but in general, these things started out as farm equipment, right? That's how the Land Rover truck was born?
Correct.
The goal being what? It was after the war, and fill in the blanks for me right there.
So the Rover Car Company, which was an incredibly successful bicycle company, then car company, post-war, their business model effectively didn't really work the way it had in the past, which was luxury cars for Britain, with probably about 80-90% local sales in the UK and 20% export. So After the Second World War, the British government said to all the automotive manufacturers in the UK, right, we need to get some money back in this country. We're broke. So you've got to change your business model. You've got to go for 80% export, 20% local sales. And so the management looked at their luxury Rover cars and they were like, this isn't going to work, because, we need something different. And initially they called this stage the alternative product. And you see some fantastic old films of Maurice Wilks running around in Bren gun carriers and all kinds of crazy things. And there's no evidence to it, but I think that's part of this alternative product stage. They're trying to work out what else can we make. And obviously he got himself a wartime Jeep, started to use it, saw the practicality of it, because he used it to go on holiday, he used it for towing his boat, he used it for all these things that we use our vehicles for. And it was like, okay, you can do anything with these. But to obviously launch it, you need a market. So farming was starting off in a big way post-war, because people were coming back. What do we do? Get the economy going, get people working, get food out.
Yep.
And so it started off basically as a farming vehicle.
And were the seats in the middle like a tractor in the first prototypes?
The first prototype, there was a Centre Steer prototype which had the seating in the middle, and this was part of. Maurice Wilks is a very creative engineer. He came up with all kinds of incredible ideas. He's very famous in Rover Car Service for jet cars. That was one of his sort of his crazy inventor side. And you can see that coming out in various ideas. And not every one of his ideas came to, fruition. But if you look very closely at a Land Rover, series Land Rover, you can see various parts where suddenly, bingo, that idea, that crazy idea from Centre Steer, suddenly you've got very clever functionality in the vehicle, because a series vehicle is very, very, very clever function-wise.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts is the storage under my seat, under my driver's seat, with a little locking mechanism, so I could put something in there and lock it up. Let me ask you this. All right, so now we've got these Land Rovers rolling out. Am I right that it's the royal family, Queen Elizabeth, who popularizes them with the British people, and they're used because they're hunters and they're fishers and they're hikers, and they like them in the muddy wetlands of wherever they were?
Yeah, I think obviously prominent people were always, who had them in the media or in the news, especially in those days when it was just basically print media and cine films and stuff. Yes, right. Yeah, that helped. But the main thing that helped for Land Rover, they did something very unusual in that they started marketing the vehicle at shows by taking people for a ride and putting a little earth mound there and demonstrating the vehicle, just as Land Rover Experience does today. All that started in 1949, and there was a chap called Alec Joyce, and I've got in touch with his family recently, and I've seen all the old family photos of Alec taking his kids off and going to the local agricultural show with a group of Land Rovers, some instructors, and people, and suddenly this agricultural truck becomes a ride. You can go for a ride in it, you can have fun in it, you can go over that crazy mound, or you can do this unbelievable, dip, or, go for this big puddle. And people suddenly were gripped with that, and you suddenly, the Land Rovers go from one or two people riding in them, and in those days you see them all piled in, completely almost no health and safety.
Right.
But you see these, but everyone, the thing is, everyone's got a smile on their face. They've got this lovely old black and white photos. They're all hanging out of the Land Rover, and they're all smiling, and that's truly how the vehicle became so popular.
It really is.
And just had fun in it, yeah.
And so because, early on, too, I was thinking, that's the African safari car. That's the car I always see in, the Lawrence of Arabia or so, where does it kind of hit the Africa and sand and deserts, or was it always there? Because that seems like the usage that surprised everyone.
Yeah, I think it comes back to those demonstrations that Alec Joyce did. And as people were demonstrated, they started to go back to those practical attributes we were thinking about. You can do this with the vehicle, or you can do that. And people are thinking, actually, I'd like to go and drive across Africa,
right.
Because especially in those days, there was still a lot of, service roads, post Second World War. So it was one of those things that suddenly you could buy a vehicle, you could load it up with stuff. You weren't going to get stuck, you got a little winch, you could do all this stuff, and you could go. And a couple of people started doing it, and obviously published books. There was, Colonel Vanderpost, and there was Barbara Toy, and then there was the Oxford and Cambridge. And as that went on, you get to the mid-'60s, and it's, a thing to do. Let's go on expedition. Let's go.
Right.
There, go here. Let's go there. Let's tackle the Darien Gap. Let's, go over the Great Divide. Let's do all these cool things. Canning Stockroute in Australia, where I come from.
Right.
And that's the thing. What do we do it with? And in those days, you do it in a Land Rover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Okay, now Land Rover Classic. Obviously, you have classic vehicles there that you're taking care of for PR. As far as for your customers, your people like me who always get Land Rovers, who have new ones, we have old ones. What is it that Land Rover Classic does, like for us, the customer?
So we basically, we have services, restorations,
right,
experience, and parts. So service, if you wanted to bring your vehicle and have it serviced or maintained, that we can do that. Restorations, yes, you can send your vehicle to us and we'll give you a quote to restore your vehicle. Experiences, it has been a little bit difficult with obviously the world circumstances doing experiences and tours and that, but we've had a few people through. We haven't done so much, sort of off-roady kind of stuff, unfortunately. Right. This year, but hopefully next year we'll be able to do a little bit more. And obviously parts, there's a lot of parts we're putting back into the system to help support these other.
Yeah, that's the trickiest bit of business. I mean, when we were going over mine, we were tracking down rare parts in Australia, not surprisingly. That's where we got our door handles, and we're able to get those. And I was on eBay a lot, and then I was in England a lot on the English eBay and even Italian eBay trying to find these little pieces. It's good to hear that you guys are going to start manufacturing that stuff. So for a guy like me now, I have my Series 2A, and this is why you're here, is because we were chatting on the show about it last week or the week before. My 71 I've owned for maybe about 10 years, I think. It's got 100,000 miles on it. It's lived 1,000 lives before it got to me. And it's, like you say, it's in... It's beat up and fun, and what's been enjoyable is this is the thing I don't have to worry about my dog, my kids, my wife, or parking next to people who open their doors into it. It's like, go ahead. And but there's a part of me that my listeners know that I like things perfect. And so, it's been in the back of my mind for a while that someday, I don't know now or maybe in the near future, it would be a dream to kind of send this truck back to where it was born and have them recommission it and redo it and make it new. It's an original marine blue truck. It's an 88-inch wheelbase. It doesn't drive, I imagine, like it did when it left your factory. So for a guy like me, who knows, I'll probably be upside down in this thing, value-wise, but that's not quite the point. What do you say to me?
Ultimately, if you want a fully restored vehicle, if you want to take it back to absolutely as it was, brand new.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, we need to understand, the condition of the vehicle now. Given, where you are in the US, the vehicle has to retain a large proportion of its original parts, to go back in. It still has to be a Land Rover. Here in the UK, there's a lot of people who have replaced chassis and all kinds of parts over the years. So,
let me just ask you right there. I think it being a 1971, doesn't it fall under a classic category?
It does.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about all original parts. I like that stuff. I like to preserve as much that was original, but it's not like you were trying to bring in something from the late 90s that there's an issue there.
No, from the chassis point of view and everything like that. So it's got a Land Rover engineered chassis and firewall. Yeah, we want obviously that to go back together because we take the vehicles very seriously. Okay. And that's what makes a Land Rover. It's chassis frame. It's beautiful box section chassis. So making sure that obviously that's in serviceable condition. Everything's in service. And obviously, if the vehicle, where's it from in the States originally? What part is it from? California?
No, it's not. I know that. I don't know where. The story of this truck was it was bought by at a Barrett Jackson auction by some drunk billionaire's wife who said, I want one of those. They won the bidding. She got it behind the wheel and drove it and said, I can't drive this. And then the husband dumped it off on these two fellas in Sherman Oaks who were going to restore it. And they pivoted to electric bikes and said, we're gonna do electric bikes. We're not gonna store Land Rovers. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I picked it up for about $6,000. Now I've since dumped in about another 15 or 20 to kind of get it going. But I wouldn't even know I wouldn't even know how to trace, I don't have those connects. Maybe you're the guy to talk to trace that VIN number and see where it started and where it went. I do know that it is originally a North American car. It was left-hand drive.
Yeah, I saw a photo the other day, and it is a North American spec car. I can tell by that because it's got the little accents, reflecting accents on the front and rear there. So that's great. What I usually do is I usually like to talk to people about this Land Rover story of theirs and get to feel what they really want out of the vehicle. And if they want a fully restored vehicle, that's great. If they want something which is a little bit more the practical or retains a bit of the character, once again, if the vehicle warrants it, okay, why not?
Well, let me hear. I can answer those questions. One, the most important thing that even my experts, I had a guy who was 80 who just retired who chain smoked Camel cigarettes with a blowtorch, and he really was hooked into this world and found those parts, and I credit him with making this car what it is today. The one thing we couldn't get right, and I know this because I've driven other series trucks, is the steering. My steering is very laggy and very heavy, and the other trucks that I've driven are not that way. They're heavy, but not in the way that mine is. Speak to that for a minute, if you can.
Okay. So, Land Rovers do suffer, in the steering, and generally the way the four-wheel drive system works, with the front prop shaft and the front axle, there's a lot of art spinning around and a lot of force. Do you remember when you were a kid when you got your bicycle wheel off and you spun the bicycle wheel and you tried to move it and it was all that centrifugal force?
Yes.
Well, putting that through the vehicle over so many years and depending on how people have either repaired the vehicle or not repaired the vehicle or replaced the parts properly or possibly not replaced the parts properly, depends on what is the feel you get today, basically.
Right.
So, to get the vehicle back to exactly how it should be, yes, all that needs to be pulled apart, restored, replaced with the right spec bearings, the right load on the little swivel cones, everything right through the steering relay, which is a bit of a nuisance to restore. They're very, very difficult to get out. Once you get them out, though, they're okay. You can restore them. Back to the steering box. Later series trucks do have beautiful steering when they're set up correctly. They're nice. They've got a great feel to them. They're not vague or worried. They're fantastic.
There isn't a foot. There's not a foot of play to the left and the right without inputs.
No.
You're not going seesawing down the road like this straight, trying to keep it straight. No,
not like some of the poor old things you get off the farms and that.
That's mine.
Yeah.
I have my record speed. We set it the other day on the 405. We got up to 68 miles an hour. We had a downhill piece of the 405, and I clicked in the overdrive gear. And boy, I thought we were going to explode at 68 miles an hour. What is the top speed of a truck like that? Is that it? Did I hit it?
With an overdrive, it's around about 70 miles an hour.
Yeah. So there you go.
A well-restored truck should cruise quite happily at between 60 and 70 on overdrive.
Oh, wow. With my overdrive, it sounds like someone's grinding a fork into a spinning chainsaw. So clearly there's something not right in the transmission. All right, well, we're running out of time. I just want to ask you a couple more quick things. These restorations, the one we're talking about, where we're going to go through everything, all my panels are fine, but we got to straighten them out. They're aluminum bodied. So I'm assuming you can take these big dings and dents out. The engine needs a rebuild for sure. Give me just a ballpark of the range for a restoration for a truck like that.
I mean, coming into the vehicles, all the work, everything being done, everything being replaced. I mean, most people who are coming into us, where you've got to be looking at a budget starting of around about £100,000 for a fully restored vehicle.
Wow. Yeah. And I imagine there are guys out there doing that, and you probably have a long wait list.
We do have a wait list, and
unbelievable. So these guys restore these things to over £100,000, which is $140,000 starting, right?
Well, that's important because obviously, if you've got, that's what I sort of say. It's very, if you've got a vehicle where you wanted to keep that character, the original body, and the original body is serviceable, that might be achievable. If you want to fully restore the body as well, it might be a little bit more. It's very hard. So it's really important for us to stress that, for us to get the vehicle, see the vehicle, understand it, understand exactly what you want from it. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, and you have a keepsake forever, I'm sure, once it's done. Because, it's, for me, it's not about being upside down. I'm like, it's a keepsake, this thing. And I have a lot of special memories in it. And, I'm exactly the type of guy who would do this. Let me just say that.
You're not alone, mate. You're not alone.
I know. Well, anyway, Michael, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. We've learned a lot about Land Rover. Someday, when you're in Los Angeles, come see us. I'm going to show you the truck. And you can tell us, we'll sit down again. We'll talk more about the history of Land Rover. This is one of my favorite brands. When people ask me, what do you like other than Porsche? I always say Land Rover. Land Rover.
Fantastic, mate.
Very nice to meet you.
Pleasure to come and see you.
Can we follow you on Instagram? Are you on Instagram anywhere?
Yeah, well, I'm known as 260AC. I've got another early Land Rover myself, which is a 16th prototype in my own collection, which is a launch car from 1948, and it used that number as a trade plate at Solihull. So 260AC is me.
260AC. All right, I'm going to follow you so I can tag you when we post this.
Yeah.
Well, there it is, Zuckerman. Did you learn a lot?
Tons.
You learned nothing.
I was rapt.
You seem very calm and happy today. Are you happy?
You asked me to let you do your thing. You said you had a lot to get through.
I did.
And just to let you do all of your babbling and talking, and so I just held back.
Well, that's good.
I had lots to say. I wanted to yell. I wanted to scream. I wanted to be myself.
Well, that's good.
But I tried to be respectful.
Well, I know you like to get out of here quickly because you have to go make the money.
Make the money.
Yeah. By the way, our Christmas message, Angie Pruniger saw it and thought it was a bullseye. He really loved it. They thought Zuckerman had a Santa hat on. He said, I'm coming down the chimney to take your money, to buy your cars.
It's your fault. You made me an addict.
And I happened to see Leno's. He sent it to Jerry, and Jerry sent it to me. And I watched his, and he was in front of three cars. And he was like, "Hey, Merry Christmas, Porsche. I got a little Christmas past here. That's a 356 Christmas present with the old 991 and Christmas future with the Porsche Taycan. So Merry Christmas." He did a fun, cute little message with his cars.
What was Jerry's?
I didn't see Jerry's. But I can only imagine what he was up to. What's the deal with the 928? He was kind of putting us down, me and you. But he
Guess
didn't.
What I got asked to do, he said.
Huh? No.
Yeah, he was bragging that he got asked to do it and we didn't.
No, but Jerry, is the consummate professional. Will have the funniest of all of them, and I'm sure put a lot of thought and production value into his, other than me and you just putting hats on and being silly for a minute. What's the deal with the 944? But this is what he did, I'm sure, at the end of his message. Now that I've done this, I'd like something in return. Like Porsche's #1 car from the museum. Don't you think that's adequate payment for this holiday message? Hey, I didn't get anything. What am I getting from that? What do you want? What do you want, Jay? How about some strudel? That'd be pretty good. I had a pretty good video. That's how that it operates at that level. They ask for something.
That was impressive, Ferris. I'm going to say for all of the listeners, I'm sitting here truly stunned at that. That was wonderful.
Improv
of taking those.
Yeah, Christmas future. That's why I did the Porsche Taycan, because that car's really going to places. But they call it the Turbo S. What's the deal with that? There's no turbo. All right, give me 2 more cars.
Very good, Ferris.
And I'm coming down the chimney to take your fucking money.
Give me the fucking money.
Yeah, give me the money. Anyway, hold in, Zuckerman, all of your complaints, because we're doing a Festivus show next week where you will get to air your grievances. I'm going to do a little post on Instagram where you guys can send us your grievances, automotive or otherwise. We will air ours, you will air yours, and together we will celebrate Automotive Festivus. And that's it, my friends. We will see you next week on Spike's Car Radio.
Thanks for listening to Spike's Car Radio, brought to you by Hangar 56. Listen to new episodes every Wednesday, and be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.